Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Panenka podcast. I am Callum, and today I'm joined here by Lewis, Ashley, and Harvey. And today we're back with a rebuild. Today we're going to be rebuilding West Ham United. So we're not going to start it like usual. Usually we start off with the manager. Today we're going to let Harvey go on a little rant about the owners and the upstairs of West Ham. Harvey, would you like to talk for us?
Yeah, so I think it's almost common knowledge that the upstairs part of West Ham, the owners, whatnot, the chairman, it's corrupt. Like they don't seem to have an interest in taking the club forward, but more so trying to get money out of it where they can. Like these big name signings. I'm sure we'll get to it later on. Not scouting players properly, signing these big players, huge players for our club at least. It's not very nice to say that the changes that need to happen from the club are larger and easier than just this player, that player, this manager, that manager. It's the roots of the club that are really, really rotten, and it shows. We've got a club that from the least biased that I can be, we're a club that should be mid-table comfortably, with the right sort of signings, could be pushing, maybe not quite Europa League spots, but pushing for it at least. So I'll keep my rant to a closed off point now. I'll let someone else sort of take up on the board. I know Lewis knows quite a bit about the board of directors and whatnot, the chairman. Lewis, do you want to talk about
that? Yeah, I can do. West Ham, their recruitment has not been something that they don't do it very well in comparison to any other team in the league. They don't recruit very well at all. There doesn't seem to be any plan behind the scenes as to what they want to do in the future and how they're going to build up. I don't believe they have a sporting director or director of football at all. The last one they did, I believe Pellegrini brought in from Malaga, but he didn't do very well, and I believe he's got sacked or might have left. So currently they are with that one. Obviously, having David Moyes as well, who's been here I think he's on deal till the end of the season or the end of next season. But we don't know whether he's a short-term or a long-term manager, because obviously this is now his second stint at the club. Last time he was there not even for a full season, I don't think. So I think they just need to. I think West Ham need to get a manager in that they know will be here for a long time, so then they can build around him in a sense and let him do what he needs to do and bring in. They just need to get a director of football that will back that manager, and then they can figure out who they need to sign.
I think the issue with West Ham is it seems to be they sign players for the name and not for the way they'll fit the system. For example, Sebastian Haller, great season for Frankfurt, linked up perfectly with Luka Jovic, but then West Ham signed him and didn't build a system around him or didn't even attempt to fit him into their system. It seems like West Ham just buy players hoping they'll fit into the system, and it's been showed by the absolute lack of scouting that goes into that club. They don't scout players at all. They bring in a sporting director who takes the credit of other sporting directors, and then they don't give people chances. Like West Ham, personally, I think, and you probably heard it from other people, need to bring in a director of football, someone who knows a lot about football, maybe even not a lot about West Ham, who can look over managerial appointments, look over signings to make sure it will actually fit. Because it seems like West Ham don't have like a culture like Liverpool have this culture where it's winning, high pressing football that, they have a system and they sign players to fit that system, not just because they're big names. Why we didn't see players like Timo Werner actually go to Liverpool. He went to Chelsea because Klopp didn't see him in his system to replace Firmino. So I think it would be interesting to see. I think the first big move West Ham need to make before anything is, to use the money they actually get from the Olympic Stadium, because it's been shown they get a lot of money, which is shown by the big signings they've been able to make, and maybe hire a director of football, bulk up that scouting department so they can really sign players and know about them instead of signing them based off hype from other people. Harvey, what do you think about that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, to be honest. I remember a game that I went to, 2018 FA Cup. We were away at Wigan, West Ham Wigan. Wigan beat us 2-0 at that point, so that really wasn't good. I remember after the game, me and my friend that I'd gone with, we both waited outside to see all the players, got the coach and whatnot. And after the coach had left with the players, David Gold and David Sullivan both came out and walked across to their big fancy cars, whatever. And they were just marauded with, like masses and masses and masses of fans swearing at them, saying, this, that, and the other, change this, change that. So I think it's almost common knowledge now that it's a known thing, that everyone within the club notices the problem. Everyone within the league notices the problem. They were talking about it on Sky Sports only last week about how West Ham have one of the most fragile systems internally with the club. Like I mentioned earlier, with signings, with the recruitment, with how everything is almost programmed. To be honest, it's more than just a one-season movement. It's changing a lot of what the club has been built around for so many years, which I will happily jump into later on the further we go. But unless anyone else has got anything else to say on the inside of the club, we can start moving towards the managerial situation if that suits everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say it's quite obvious that the fans are unhappy with how the club is run. Like, I remember a game against Burnley a few years ago. The fans just went absolutely mental at the board of directors box, started throwing everything at them, and the fans got onto the pitch, started messing with the players, started messing with the pitch, and it's obvious. I don't get how the owners can just look past that and not change anything after that happens. It's very obvious that the fans want change. But it's about how they actually do it and if they do it, because at the moment it doesn't look like they're going to.
Yeah, it just seems like the club has no interest in actually making improvements. But speaking of where they may need to make improvements, let's move on to the manager and David Moyes, a man I have a lot of love for his time at Everton. But I can imagine, Harvey, you don't have much love for David Moyes. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, sorry to put in again, but it's when we announced that we had signed Moyes again, I was fuming. I was mega fuming. I was absolute. Do you know what? Words couldn't describe the way that I felt about that appointment. Obviously, when he left last time, I think we were winless in 8, and then he was sacked. It was appointed this time, and it was a similar story, I think. I would like to sort of point this out quickly. Our form under Pellegrini, towards the end, it wasn't great. But, we had a Premier League winning manager, at West Ham. And it's not every day that you can say something like that. Obviously, he had his time back at City a few years ago. But I really, really liked what he was trying to bring into West Ham. And you can see it from the way that he lined the team up and a few of the signings that he brought in with he tried to take down what West Ham had built off for so many years, and I'll explain that now for you. The way that I see it, at least, is that with West Ham, we have over the last decade, we've had quite a slow team. We haven't been known for our pace as such. Yeah, there'll be the occasional player that will burst out in the scene, and they'll have fast feet, lots of movement, loads of energy, and it'll be a breath of fresh air for the team. Payet, we will talk more about that later on, but he's a perfect example, a player with quick feet, quick thinking, you know, great sort of movement on and off the ball that changed the team for the better. We've always signed washed up players. A perfect example of that would be bringing Zabaleta. You know, his prime was at City. We were never going to get him from City when he was in his prime because that's not a realistic move. Who would want to go from champion City to mid to bottom table West Ham? You know, Stuart Downing in the past, another one. It's these types of signings, and there are many more. Jelavic we signed a couple of seasons ago. I think he did score for us in a cup game actually. But I don't seem to remember him scoring too many more goals. And it's these sorts of signings of players that have seen their best somewhere else and have like a household name for them in other clubs that come to West Ham, and then it's almost like they're going down in their career and they see West Ham as like a step down from where they were before. And that could be true, but I don't like seeing that. And what changed with Pellegrini was he went for younger players, faster players that had more potential rather than these old washed up players. And I think washed up might be a bit of a harsh term to use, but when you're seeing this same cycle of buying and selling going on within your club for so long, it's frustration that's only fair to see, I think. I will cut my rant short there because I'm aware that I've sort of waffled for a while there. If anybody else has anything to say on that sort of matter, please go for it. I'm very fired up about this sort of stuff. It really annoys me. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about it, please.
Yeah, I'd say that I'd say actually David Moyes is probably what West Ham need at this moment in time. I think in terms of, I think obviously West Ham need a plan, a long-term plan, and I think back when they had Sam Allardyce, they had that in terms of obviously they're in the Championship, they got up, and then Sam Allardyce took them as far as he could and got them to a mid-table team, and then they went, right, we'll let go of Allardyce and bring someone in who could take us further. And obviously, Bilic did that in his first season, getting him into Europe. So there was some sort of plan there. Obviously, Bilic didn't end very well at all because obviously he got sacked. But the same thing, they brought in Moyes, who guided them to safety. And I think, personally, he could definitely get them into mid-table and sort of be that Allardyce, in a sense, in that kind of role. But obviously, they got rid of him and then brought in Pellegrini. But I feel like they did that a bit too early. I think they should have given Moyes another year then at least. I just need to give him a bit more time because he inherited a bad West Ham team and got them safety. And I think he could definitely take them a little bit further than what they are at now. And I think some of the players, in terms of what they've got, I think they suit the way he would want them to play. So I know that when Moyes was at Everton, he played like a 4-4-1-1 and he would have left backs who would want to get forward, and with West Ham having Fredericks and Cresswell who will want to do that as well, and then having a big physical striker up front who they've got Antonio, pacey wingers and like Felipe Anderson. They've got like the players that could fit his system if he implements it. Obviously that was at Everton, and football's a different time. It's different now, it was 10 years ago, but I think Moyes is definitely what they need at this moment in time, and I don't think they should think about getting rid of him anytime soon. I think they should keep him for this summer, let him go into next season. Obviously, if things go terribly, then get rid of him. But I think they should give him a lot more time than they did last time.
Yeah, as someone who's had to watch David Moyes quite a lot, I'm watching West Ham. I'm very used to watching the system. Watching Antonio burst forward with his pace and his strength and get goals reminds me of Yakubu back in the day and stuff like that. But David Moyes is a good manager, and I feel like he gets a lot of stick from West Ham and from Sunderland, when in reality, for example, what could he have done with that Sunderland team? Honestly, I feel like Sir Alex Ferguson would have struggled to get that team out of relegation. That is how bad that team was. The West Ham team when he first came in, awful. Lost Payet. Didn't spend the money from Payet wisely, even if it wasn't. I don't think they got much, or he left on a free or something like that. So yeah, exactly. It wasn't much, but then they didn't even try to reinvest. Even if it's splash the cash and lose a bit of money, you've got to do that. But this 4-4-1-1, I've watched a lot. I've watched we played in different ways. I've watched Fellaini be that attacking midfielder. I've watched other players like Leon Osman be that attacking midfielder. It's very strange. Leon Osman, in my opinion, very similar to the way they're doing it with Mark Noble now. Not the quickest, great passing range, great ability to lead a forward line. But I think you give Moyes a chance to, or at least give him a season to, work it, because clearly, let's look at West Ham since the restart. Antonio, this is the best I've ever seen Antonio play in his entire career. By far, he's scoring goals for fun. Mark Noble seems to, be great in that ability to just sit, find a passing range. The wingers, I don't think Fornals should be a winger, like a left mid. Personally, I think, maybe Felipe Anderson or even someone else. If Felipe Anderson keeps being as inconsistent as he is, but it seems like Moyes just needs to make a few tweaks to that system, and it will work, because even that system now, where it doesn't seem to be fully complete yet, with everything Moyes wants, they're performing and they're getting wins. For example, against teams like Chelsea, Moyes is proving that he still has it. But yeah, I think give Moyes at least a season, half a season, to prove himself and cement this West Ham team. As at least, they shouldn't really be expecting 10th or anything. Maybe like if he could get West Ham 11th, 12th, that's a good improvement. Just allow. I think West Ham need to look at steady growth instead of rapid growth to get where they want to be. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to follow along. Ash, do you want to give your opinion on Moyes? He's someone you've watched too.
Yeah, no, I think keeping Moyes would probably, at least for another season, would be best interest for West Ham. I mean, when he was at United, he was left with a team that was aging, didn't want it as much, and I think anyone would have struggled with that team. Anyone that came to the job would have struggled with that team, and he gets too much stick from his time at United, Sunderland, and West Ham the first time around. I think he's a good manager, and he knows how to keep teams at that mid-table spot and even pushing for Europe, as we saw with Everton. But yeah, I think just giving him one more, just give him some more time, and I think he'll prove himself. But yeah, everyone's really mentioned what I was going to say anyway. So
before we go over to the goalkeeper and defence and whatnot, and I think you guys will start to notice sort of trend in the way that I like to see football being played. Is I've hated on Moyes so much. First stint, this stint, but I'm very much of the belief that you should give like a new manager time to settle in, to get the team playing his brand of football the way that he wants it to be, or she, either or. We don't assume we don't do anything wrong like that here on the Panenka podcast. But no, with this sort of thing we mentioned before, I think that Frank Lampard should get the time at Chelsea. I think that Ole should get the time at United to get their brand of football being played. And what Moyes' brand of football is, whether I like it or not, I don't know. But if we can get a team that supports him and fully backs, his style, what he wants from his players, that's something that I will get behind. It's just a shame to see a new idea like Pellegrini brought in go so quickly. But sorry to put that in there. That was just I thought was sort of relevant to the topic.
Yeah, and just before we move on to goalkeeper, I'm just going to say quickly about Moyes. He got us fourth place in the league with Marcus Bent up front. Clearly, the man knows what he's doing. But anyway, we'll move on to the goalkeeper now. And I think I'm just going to say it now, and I think everyone agrees. Fabianski, he's probably one of the most underrated, one of the better goalkeepers in the league. I think they keep Fabianski in goal. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm guessing everyone agrees Fabianski is the goalkeeper West Ham need.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It was Hammer of the Year, 2019, and deservedly so. I think the keeper system that we had before with Adrian and Darren Randolph, sort of being in and out every now and then, I think that worked for us at the time. And then we saw, I think Fabianski came from Swansea, And he showed at Swansea when they were in the Premier League. It was a brilliant shot stopper, and he is now. He is getting on a little bit. 35, 36 years old. But as we said before, keepers can go longer with their careers because they're not as mobile with their feet. They don't get the sort of pains that older players do get as fast as they get them. But I think Fabianski is a safe bet for the next season or two at the very least, and we can focus on like the rest of the team moving forward, where we've got a solid goalkeeper there already.
Yeah, I think West Ham are probably goalkeeper again. As much as same with like most teams in the Premier League, goalkeeper is one of their strongest positions. I think with Lucas Fabianski, they've got definitely one of the most underrated goalkeepers in the Premier League. Obviously, he's been around for a while with Arsenal and Swansea and now West Ham. And they also got Darren Randolph as well, who I think is even more underrated. He did very well at West Ham in his first stint at the club. Continued that through with Middlesbrough. Is probably one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship up until he left and returned to West Ham. However, the main problem is that Fabianski is 35 and Randolph is 33, I think. They're both aging, and both of them will only be around for like another year or two at this type of level. So I think West Ham will need to eventually look into a younger goalkeeper, someone else that they can bring through. They could probably look at the Championship for some younger goalkeepers or abroad, but I think the goalkeeper will definitely be somewhere that they need to invest in at least in a couple of years' time, because Fabianski and Randolph, as much as they are both really good goalkeepers and definitely suitable for this level, their age is definitely a problem.
Yeah, so I've on my notes I've said keep Fabianski. Obviously, one of the most underrated keepers in the league, as you lot have said. But I think because he is 35 and Darren Randall's 33, the goalkeepers they have are all aging and obviously going to decline. So I've said you need a younger keeper as a backup who can then push for the first team in about 1 or 2 years. So I've got the Diogo Costa, who was a backup keeper at Porto. He's made 12 appearances, kept 7 clean sheets. I think bringing him in to push for that first team spot where Fabianski is will really help him, and also being around that experience with Fabianski and Darren Randolph will help him learn as a keeper. And in 1 or 2 years, if this does happen, I can see him pushing for the first team spot and just improving from there.
That'll be exciting.
I'll say just quickly, just a quick point on that. Would Diogo Costa want to leave Porto, who are arguably the biggest team in Portugal, to join West Ham? No disrespect. It's Porto are in the Champions League pushing for Europe, and if he's pushing and already there, do you think actually he would want to move to West Ham? Do you think that'd be a good move for him?
I think obviously the Premier League does attract big players because it's the best league in the world, arguably. But yeah, I think that if he wants to push for this first team spot, I think at West Ham he'll get a bigger audience around him, and I think that he'll develop better at West Ham if he can. But he's only had 12 appearances for Porto, and they were mainly in the cup competitions. So I feel like if he goes to West Ham, he'll have more of an audience behind him and get more recognition for his ability.
I decided for West Ham, I agree with Ashley that I need to use a backup goalkeeper. I decided to see who West Ham had in their academies and their youth league teams. As you know, West Ham have been known for having quite a good academy. And I found this man, Joseph Anang, he's a Ghanaian goalkeeper, has made 17 appearances in the Premier League 2 and has only conceded 18 goals. Why not? Why not call him up and say, "Here, do you want to play a few Carabao Cup games or something like that?" It wouldn't really be a bad shout at all to let one of these young keepers. Or they've also got Hungarian goalkeeper who's only 17, I believe, born in 2002. Christian Hegi, but he's 20 goals conceded in 9 games. He's a bit more raw prospect. I feel like this Joseph Anang, let him learn from Lucas Fabianski and let him watch how Fabianski plays, develop from Fabianski. It's not a bad idea at all. And then maybe give him the chance, and if that doesn't work, go spend some money on a goalkeeper. But it's always good to look into your academy and maybe avoid spending some money if you can.
I think quickly on the topic of the academy, you mentioned that it's got a good name to it. We've had some good names come through, but I think the problem with it is that we bring through these big names, but they don't seem to ever stay. I think this would be a good little time to move into the defence if everyone's had their say. We recently saw Ngakia, the right back, who I think his last game was Wolves. Wolves at home, and Wolves got 2-0 win. He's 19 years old, 20 this year, I think. Really, really promising. Had loads going for him. Much the same as Reece Oxford, a couple of seasons ago. I think his breakthrough season was actually the 7th finish, the Leicester winning season, 15-16. And he was fantastic on the ball. He got back, he got forward, he gave the midfield stability, which Mark Noble is there. And as my favourite player for West Ham, I hate to speak poorly of him, but he's not always been the man that we've needed, more the man that we've got that can try to do that sort of thing. I'll try not to go to the midfield too much just yet, but we've seen good players like this come through. And we had Martin Samuelson, Nathan Holland, names, if you guys know, they showed brilliant signs when they're younger and they've gone out on loan, found interest elsewhere, and not really wanted to come home, not wanted to stay and represent the claret and blue. With Ngakia as well, I think the problem with him was him and Moyes didn't see eye to eye. Moyes was keen on getting him to sign a contract extension to stay. Had let it run out, and he left at the end of June, I believe it was, which is a shame because I'm quite a big fan of homegrown players. I don't like going out and spending these big figures. So when a player does come up through the ranks, which is why if Declan Rice can be somehow not pinched by City or United in the next transfer window, I would love to see him become the next Mark Noble, and be this holding midfielder, that sort of controls the park player, like Mr. West Ham sort of name to him, which Mark Noble has got the name for so far. So it's a shame for that, but I guess since we're on the defence, I'll let one of you guys take up if you've got something to say.
Yeah, it is a bit strange with West Ham and the whole youth system idea. It's just, even in the past, West Ham's history of the players they bring through is disgustingly good. Or players that they even steal from other youth academies and then mould themselves. They're known to be able to find younger players, and it's just strange how they have this ability to find, like we were talking about earlier, to find these talented younger players, but then they can't have a competent scouting staff to go out and scout a player before they sign them. I think looking at defence, I think West Ham are quite good with the starting pair. Issa Diop and Balbuena. Diop, tons of potential. Honestly, looks like he could be one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League when he develops fully. He's fantastic in my opinion, and deep down, I wanted West Ham to go down, so hopefully Everton could steal him from West Ham. Because he was literally the centre-back I looked at and went, perfect, he'd fit. But even Balbuena, I feel like Balbuena is very underrated, doesn't get the props that he deserves for being a talented centre-back. But the issue with West Ham comes with the ageing centre-backs that they have, Ogbonna, Winston Reid, defenders in general, Zabaleta, and people, and they're on big wages. I believe Ogbonna and Reid are 70k and Zabaleta 75k. Like, this transfer window or next in January, they either need to let them go on a free or sell them. It doesn't matter how little for. They have to realise they're paying too much money, and they need to, in my opinion, try to either use academy products or bring in a young centre-back who's on the cheap. from like maybe like a championship team, maybe even a League One team. You look at who's performing down there and see if you can bring any of them in. It's just quite strange to look at. Even right back, I feel like they could bring someone in better than Fredericks. I feel like left back, I feel they're good at left back. I feel like they don't really need to buy anyone. Masuaku and Cresswell are both good left backs. That's fine, but the entire defence just looks like it needs working on. And it's like, with West Ham, usually we have player suggestions for certain parts, but like, West Ham are strange. You don't know who West Ham are going to bring in, as seen by Fornals and Haller, who were expected to go to big teams around Europe. But then they also sign, like awful players who you think, oh, wait, they should be signing better than that if they're able to sign these players. But I think if I'm West Ham, they have their starting centre-back partnership prepared, Balbuena and Diop, and they just need to look at getting some backups, maybe even switching Declan Rice back to centre-back every now and again. I feel like they just need depth in defence, and then if they'll be able to move up the table, because a lot of the defenders seem quite injury-prone as well. I believe Balbuena's been injured, Ogbonna's injured, Winston Reid, I believe he got a bad injury, or quite an injury that took him out 1 or 2 years ago. It's just, they need younger legs at centre-back, and they need depth, to put it simply. I think they just need depth at centre-back.
Yeah, I'd say West Ham's defence, it's I'll go along from right back to left back. I think right back they had 4 options in Ngakia, Fredericks, Zabaleta and Ben Johnson, but then Zabaleta got released and Ngakia obviously turned down that contract offer. So now they're left with Ryan Fredericks and Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson made his first appearance this season against Watford. I think it was his first game since 2019. I think it's his only second appearance for the club. So they clearly have a young right back who they have some sort of faith in to play. And then Ryan Fredericks, as much, I don't think technically he's the best player. I think he's really good for a team. I think it goes back to what I said earlier about how he suits Moyes' style of getting players going forward. I remember when he was at Fulham and he would literally just run down the line and just put a ball in. That's what he's good at. And so you have 2 decent right backs. However, I feel like in terms of the Premier League as a whole, I think they're quite weak there, and I think they could maybe use a bit of a better option to Fredericks. But Fredericks, if Moyes can exploit Fredericks' pace somehow in his tactics, then that might work. Centre back, I think they're actually quite like West Ham. I believe because they have Ogbonna, obviously, but he's 32, he's ageing, he's slowing down, he might leave soon. Issa Diop is someone they have to keep hold of. He could be there for a number of years. And Balbuena is a decent partner to him as well. And then obviously Winston Reid, but at the moment he's on loan in the MLS. So they technically only have 3 centre-backs. So I think it'd be useful if West Ham went and signed a younger centre-back who could then pair with Diop in the future. So obviously Declan Rice can play there, but he's more of a defensive midfielder, so that doesn't really work. And then at left back, you've got Aaron Cresswell and Arthur Masuaku. Arthur Masuaku he's more of a wing back in the sense of that he's really good going forward. He's got a lot of trickery as well. And then Cresswell is obviously very good on the set pieces and stuff like that. So I think overall West Ham's defence isn't too bad, but I feel like they could strengthen it at right back in terms of quality. And then I think they need to bring in another centre back, as I don't think 3 is enough for a Premier League side like West Ham.
Yeah, and just before, just to quickly get it out of the way, I believe I have a right-back suggestion for them, and that's to go sign Matty Cash out of Nottingham Forest. He's 22, I believe, quite young. 5 goals, 3 assists. 3 goals, 5 assists, sorry. And then he's been really good for Forest. He used to be a central midfielder. They've moved him over to the right and then kind of like pushed him back from right mid to right back, and he's been sensational this year. He's averaging 2.7 tackles, 1.4 interceptions, 3 clearances. And then, he has that ability to get forward like Moyes wants, 1 key pass and a dribble. And then he's also versatile, having someone who can play at right back, wing back, right mid, centre mid, So it's a good little Swiss Army knife player to have, and he's only valued at transfer max at 4.32 million. So if we're being realistic, that's probably about in this market, you're probably going to, you usually pay around double to something of someone's value. It's a bit strange. I'd say maybe 10 to 15 million for Matty Cash, which after the season he's had is a definite, I'd take that. Even if it's just to have as a depth option, you know, him and Fredericks might switch around. If they're playing a game where West Ham think they might be able to dominate the attack, they might play Fredericks. If they're needing someone who can bomb back and forward a bit more, they'll play Matty Cash. But also about Cresswell is you can really see the Moyes system with Cresswell. He's trying to make Cresswell his Leighton Baines. You know, you can see it in, they are quite similar players. You can see it with putting Cresswell on the set pieces, on trying to get him to help get crosses and stuff in. But yeah, like Lewis said, you know, I think I agree with everything Lewis said. And has anyone else got anything to say about the West Ham defence?
Yeah, I just agree with everything Lewis and you and Harvey have said, to be honest. Like, Ngakia obviously could have been a key player for West Ham, but obviously turned down the contract offer, which is very disappointing. But yeah, I think they need to get, as much as they do need experience in defence, I think they need some younger legs, which is, I've got a suggestion, which is Jason Denayer from Lyon. He's only valued at 11 million in the transfer market at the moment. So I think if Jason Denayer wants to come back and prove City wrong, because they just cast him aside, basically, he could come back, prove City wrong, and then West Ham, this could be a statement of intent for West Ham. He's 25. He's very imposing, and I think this could be a good signing for him, to be honest. But yeah, agreeing with everything you said, I think that they just need some younger legs and depth, and at right back, obviously, use Fredericks as much as they can, but add some depth in that position as well. But yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. So not much to add on there.
So that looks like what we think about the defence.
Quickly. I realised I had my say on the youth system. I didn't actually say anything about the defence construction. And Ngakia, yeah, we covered. Quite upsetting that he's gone. I didn't think he was Premier League ready, but I thought with years to come, maybe sitting at a backup to somebody else, he would have grown quite nicely into a relatively versatile and fast fullback. Fredericks was what I was saying earlier. He was part of the group of signings from Pellegrini. You know, younger and faster players to make the team, you know, play a different style of football. He was part of that game plan, and we saw Masuaku play a lot more under Pellegrini as well, because he is arguably faster on the ball, faster off the ball than Cresswell. He's more of a set piece taker as Cresswell, and we've seen Cresswell being sort of moved into a centre back position. He's played a little bit of both this season and last, for sure. I've said quite often that I would rather have Masuaku than Cresswell in my starting 11. At least I think he's got a few more years left in the tank. I think he plays more like a modern fullback does nowadays, with the attacking threat there as well. That can also cause problems at the back if you've got attacking fullbacks. You know, that you could argue that's our biggest downfall this season. You know, I think we've scored 47 goals in the league this season, which for a team fighting relegation isn't really that bad. We've scored more than quite a few of the teams above us. So I don't think that the goals for is the problem as such, is the first problem to address. I think it is the defence, and as you've all said, Diop is the one we absolutely must keep a hold of. I remember, Ashley, Man United went in for Diop. Was it last season? I think it was a 40 million bid that they had rejected, and he said that he wanted to spend the next few years of his career, at West Ham, which was just you love to hear it. You absolutely love to hear that sort of thing. It's great. As far as Balbuena and Ogbonna goes, I'd pick Ogbonna. I'd pick Ogbonna over Balbuena to start. When he first joined Balbuena, he had a few good games, and then, as he said, injury cast him out the side. He's been out for a while now. So whether we go for youth whether we trust Ogbonna and Diop for the next season or two, I don't entirely know. But Diop is the rock in the defence that we absolutely have to keep a hold of for my say.
So yeah, that seems to be everyone's opinion on the defence here. It's basically just don't lose Diop, West Ham. But yeah, let's move on to the midfield. And I feel like I'd say this is the strongest part of this West Ham team. Definitely. Souček has been great in my opinion. Great loan acquisition and a clause to make it permanent, which I think they 100% should do. Declan Rice has shown his ability as a player, and it's why teams like Chelsea are wanting to pay like 50, 60 million for him. I do think Rice is a little bit overrated, but he also has that massive potential to be a big holding midfielder in the future. Yeah, and it's with the Moyes teams, you can see the similarities because it seems to be like it sets up as a 4-4-1-1, but then it kind of turns into a 4-2-3-1. As you can see with Rice and Souček, more defensive-based midfielders, they'll sit in the hub of midfield, and then the left mid, right mid, and Cam/centre mid will push forward. And then, so it's kind of like it's a 4-2-3-1 in attack, and then it switches back to the 4-4-1-1 in defence. But I feel like they don't really need to make many improvements. Besides shockingly, Felipe Anderson's position, left mid, I feel like they could bring in some competition, but I'll bring that up later. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say about the centre of the park, the central of midfield?
I think the holding midfielders is sorted. I think you said it pretty well before. Probably the strongest place in the starting 11 in the squad is midfield. Depth, maybe not so for holding midfielders. I think Rice and Souček are definitely the ones to move forward with. Both relatively young. Souček's actually, to be fair to them, they've both proven that they are sort of Premier League worthy in terms of talent, I think, and they both are sort of young enough to see them grow over the next few years into what could be, a really, really good partnership. But it's risky saying something like that with the amount of attention that Rice has got over the last season or two. I can see him going somewhere else. And I'm glad that you said that you think he's overrated, because I do. And yeah, that might sound strange coming from a West Ham fan, but it's true. He's rated so highly. And yes, we saw him score that absolute screamer against Watford the other day, which was fantastic to see, honestly. It was a beautiful finish, but people seem to forget that finish doesn't make him a complete midfielder. That doesn't make him this 80 million. He's not an 80 million player. He's not. And I think putting that number on a player that young with little Premier League experience compared to some of the counterparts in the league, is absurd. Yeah, he's got the age on his side. The name escapes me, but the Premier League have the rule of English players in their team. Do you guys know what the name for that is? The homegrown initiatives. It's something like that.
You have to have 7 or 8.
I think it's
in
8.
Starting 23, I think it is. That includes,
Chelsea bought Drinkwater. They didn't need him, but he was another. Yeah, it's for that sort of thing, and I think because of that, he's valued higher than he should be. But not to take anything away from him, I think those have been brilliant in the middle of the park. Which leads me on to my next point about holding midfielders. Mark Noble. I don't think he will, but I would absolutely hate to see him go anywhere else but West Ham. I think he will retire here in the next year or two. If he can push out 2 or 3 more seasons, then fair dues to him. A lot of people give him a lot of criticism. He's not the fastest player by any means. He's never had his legs, but they're starting to go more than the players around him, at least. I think, how old is he? 33? He's 33 now. Our stats from the last year are actually better when he plays in terms of win percentage and whatnot, goals scored, than when he doesn't. Which confuses me with Rice and Souček playing so well together in the midfield at the moment. Where does he come into it? Does he start to become a player that plays, cup games, less important games, and then those two take the bigger, more important games? I don't really know, but I think for now, the holding midfield position is set in stone for West Ham. I think other positions in midfield, the wider positions are up for more debate. I think we can all agree, Lewis, as the avid Championship fan, Jared Bowen is definitely the guy that keeps his position. Actually, do you want to have a say on Jared Bowen? Because is he not in the top goal scorers for the Championship this season, despite leaving in January? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe he was 5th top scorer a couple of weeks ago, but I believe we're actually saying this earlier. I think he's 7th. I think we said he was 7th before we started recording. He was destined to leave Hull at some point. I think West Ham have actually picked up a really good player there. They spent like 20 million. I think people were saying about that it was way too expensive for someone that never played in the Premier League and done it. But I think 16 goals up until deadline day on January, I think is absolutely ridiculous. Especially if someone who's playing, considering he's playing with now the worst team in the league around him at the time, and him still managing to get 16 goals by himself. Obviously, there was Krasicki as well, but since both of them are left, Hull have gone down, basically going to be going down to League One. I think that just shows how important, how good Bowen was for that whole team. And I think he's definitely West Ham's right winger. But I think that's definitely set in stone. I don't think anyone can say it's not. I think I think he has the potential to be really good in the Premier League. I'll go back to holding midfield. I think Declan Rice and Souček are definitely players that should be West Ham's holding midfielders for the next couple of years. Obviously, West Ham should definitely make that Souček deal permanent. Obviously, they did have Carlos Sanchez as well, who was a backup. Obviously, he got released. He didn't really play very well. And then obviously Mark Noble as well. I think Mark Noble you definitely have to keep around for the next 2 or 3 years. He's so important to that team in the dressing room for him being at the club for so long. And he said he plays 500th league appearance, I think, for West Ham or something like that against Watford. And he said in the interview afterwards that he's surprised that he's playing this many games at the moment due to his age and stuff like that. So I think he wouldn't be surprised if he got dropped for Declan Rice and Souček to be those holding midfielders. But I think West Ham might, seeing as they've released Sanchez, they may need to look at bringing through just another youngster to be like sort of a backup to Rice and Souček, and Noble obviously being a backup as well, or he'll go to that. Obviously they brought through Declan Rice and Reece Oxford beforehand, so they're clearly quite good at bringing through defensive midfielders. So I don't see why West Ham can't bring through another defensive midfielder. But yeah, I think defensive midfield wise they are definitely solid. They may need one more just as a little backup. Same thing with centre back, but and then right wing is definitely a position that West Ham very strong with Snodgrass and back well with very good set pieces. I just think West Ham are perfect in those positions. But I'll get to the rest of
the. To speak about this backup spot, I think West Ham have already got this backup midfielder spot, and he's sat playing in Charlton. Josh Cullen, a player, as someone from Bradford, I know a lot about Josh Cullen, and I think he's a fantastic player. For Bradford, he was, in my opinion, he was one of the best players I've seen play for us since Naki Wells. He had energy, he back and forth. And for Charlton this year, when I was looking through this, I was like, oh, Josh Cullen plays for West Ham too. So I was like, oh, is Josh Cullen still at West Ham? So I Googled his name. I was like, oh, let's see how he's doing. Josh Cullen has been fantastic for Charlton, I didn't realise. 2 tackles a game, 1.3 interceptions, 1.5 clearances. That sounds like just a holding midfielder. Then he's flying out almost 2 key passes a game and dribbling almost once a game. West Ham have Rice, who's more of a defensive midfielder, and then the Souček, who gives more of that box-to-box vibe, but he's still mainly a defensive midfielder. Josh Cullen would be a really nice box-to-box midfielder for the cup game, someone who can rush back and forth and back and forth. Fantastic player, and I really think he needs to be in West Ham's team. But before we move on, because I know Lewis has a lot of love for Josh Cullen too. I don't know as much about this player, so you might have to help me. This was just while I was doing research. Marcus Brown, who's been playing for Oxford, I believe he's an attacking midfielder / a winger.
Yeah, I think so.
But from the 11 starts he's had for Oxford, he has 5 goals, 4 assists. He's averaging 1.3 tackles a game, a key pass, and 2.3 dribbles. You know, I've got here, give younger players a chance to play, even if it's a rotation rule. You know, West Ham need depth. Why not bring these young players who can be spark plugs off the bench, who can run around and aren't going to get tired after playing 30 minutes of football off the bench, you know? Someone like Josh Cullen could really help. Someone like Mark Noble in the midfield, you know? It takes a lot of pressure off Mark Noble having someone who can bomb around like Josh Cullen, or Marcus Brown, who seems to know how to score and create, even if it's off the bench. But Lewis, is there anything you'd like to talk about before we move on to Ashley?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I literally just had a look there because I don't think Marcus Brown is at West Ham anymore. I think he left, and I searched it up just quickly, and he is at Middlesbrough now, on loan at Oxford. But Oxford do have Nathan Holland on loan from West Ham as well, so there may have been some confusion, but I'm not sure. I think Nathan Holland's done very well. Obviously, Oxford got to the Championship, League One playoff final, so they've clearly done very well this season. But with Josh Cullen, actually reminded me, I completely forgot to mention Josh Callum at all. He's been really good for Charlton. He was there on loan for their promotion season last year, and they managed to get him back. And their game against Wigan yesterday, David Moyes was actually in attendance for it. It was on Twitter. So clearly, Cullen is somewhat part of his plans. Maybe he's just having a little look. But Cullen is 22 now, around that age. He's definitely been needed a West Ham game at some point. I think now is the right time to definitely give him a go, and I've completely forgot about him. He's definitely that backup player that clearly, obviously, they brought through Declan Rice and Reece Oxford. Josh Cullen is definitely someone who's a really good box-to-box midfielder, and he's been key for Charlton this year as they look to stay up. Yeah, I think that's it. So, Ashley, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I was just listening to Callum talk then about players that can bomb around, cover loads of ground, and actually make effort for the team. I've got a stat here that in a game against Man City this season, Thomas Soucek covered more ground in the last 6 years than any West Ham player has in one game, which is a mad stat, and it just shows like the effort that him and Jared Bowen are willing to put into the team, which I think has been a big disappointment in West Ham's Premier League campaigns, that players just seem content with teams beating them, and they don't really play for the badge at all. And I think Thomas Soucek is a big part, and I think he obviously with that stat, he shows he puts the effort in and actually wants to get the ball back for his team and work for the team, and it just shows that I think with this signing, if they can make this Soucek deal permanent, then it's a big step in the right direction for the club. That's all I want to say, really.
Yeah, so I believe that's everything we've got to say about the midfield. Harvey, have you got anything else you want to mention about the midfield before we move on?
It's kind of up to whether you guys classify Lanzini and Fornals as midfielders, or you put them as forwards. Because if that's the case, then we can transition from those two in to the forwards. Really, I did want to say earlier, Cullen completely slipped my mind. I hadn't even thought of that. I haven't heard that name in so long. I remember seeing him go out to Bradford, and I was like, oh, this is just another one of our sort of youth players that goes out, and we never hear from them again. The name slipped me completely, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's such a good shout for the future, at least. I'm not sure how long the loan is, actually. That's poor from my end, but I don't actually recall how long he's got left on his Charlton loan now. Do you guys know?
At the end of the season. I think Charlton managed to extend it till the end of the current season.
And I think there's rumours that Charlton might be getting him again on loan, or trying to buy him permanently. If they can, I think that's if they can stay up, was said, because there was rumours about Cullen signing for Charlton if they can stay in the Championship.
Well, yeah, I think you sort of you brushed on it earlier. It's about giving the youth that you get through West Ham more of a chance rather than loaning them out so early, them finding love for another club with another sort of position. I think that was a problem with, or it could have been a problem with Ngakia. He was only played more so towards the end of his contract when things already appeared to be written in stone for him leaving. And the player that we haven't mentioned going into the forwards is Grady Diangana, which Championship fan Lewis, I'm sure, has seen plenty of this season. Under Slaven Bilic once again, he shined. And it looks like he's the sort of player that we could have done with this season at times, to be honest. Lewis, again, I'll let you sort of take over here for another right mid for the Championship. The West Ham boy, you can go for it, Paul.
Yeah, we'll go into left wing and attacking mid as we haven't done that yet. But I think Ian Garner has played on the right for West Brom, but I think he definitely do a job on the left. Obviously, West Ham only have Felipe Anderson. I don't think they have any other left mids unless I'm missing anyone. Obviously, we went over Bowen and Snodgrass, but I don't. Is there anyone on the left?
Fornals plays on the left, but he's not a left winger.
I would have said he's an attacking mid, so we'll say Felipe Anderson's the only left midfielder because I think he is. Ian Garner as a backup, definitely. I think West Ham, now that I think about it, Felipe Anderson, Jared Bowen, Snodgrass and Ian Garner is definitely good enough for the Premier League. I think he's just he came through at West Ham last year. I think he made a couple of cup appearances. I think when did West Ham beat someone like 8-1 or 9-1 in the League Cup last year?
We beat this is
a lower league team.
Yes, hang on a minute.
But Dean Garner scored 1 or 2 in that game. I think that might have been his debut or something like that.
He was brilliant in
It was who?
Macclesfield. We beat.
Macclesfield.
That's not really sort of bragging rights there, but yeah, it was quite a convincing 8-0 win.
Yeah, but Dean Garner, I think he's got a goal or two there, and obviously he came through in spots last season, so it was really good for him. Especially, I was surprised a club as high up in the EFL as West Brom actually went for him, because I thought, considering the amount of experience he had gained, I thought maybe a League One or a League Two team would have gone for it. But he's clearly stepped up to the mark, and obviously we can tell that by West Brom being second in the league currently and looking like they're going to get promoted to the Premier League. So clearly Dean Garner is good enough. And then attacking mid, I actually think they're fine at the moment. Lanzini and Fornals. Obviously Fornals, he had a lot of potential to live up to. I think he did really well for Spain in the under-21s Euros or something like that in the summer beforehand. West Ham had already bought him and he was scoring like every single game. So I think West Ham fans obviously had a lot of hype around him, and I think West Ham fans were expecting a lot, and he hasn't quite delivered yet this year, but he's still quite young. I think he definitely has the potential to live up to that. And then obviously Lanzini as well, he's proven Premier League level for the last 5 years or whatever he's been here. I think West Ham are fine. I think, just overall in the midfield, I think West Ham are solid, and I don't think they really need to buy anyone at all, really.
And it's a trust in the youth that they've got within the team. I mean, Jared Bowen's only, what is he, 22? He's 23 now, sorry. So with him being like a recent purchase, you can only sort of see or hope for the future that he stays and he grows into the player that we all know that he can be. I saw somewhere earlier, since the restart in the Premier League, Bowen has the most assists of any Premier League player, which I believe is 4. The date today is the 19th. It's the 19th of July on the day of filming. And since Project Restart has come in, he's got the most assists out of any other player in the league, which I think is fantastic. But just been looking now, and it's annoying me that we forgot this man, Jack Wilshere. Sorry to bring it back to midfield, but I thought he was quite a good talking point, and we've completely gone over his head. I'll make it quick because we are on the forwards now. But Gaffer told me earlier that Jack Wilshere's earning, is it 100k a week? an injury-prone player, you can argue liability is a sort of fitting word for that sort of player. It's almost it's frustrating to see that we're spending, £5 million a year on a player that sits on the bench and comes on 3 games a season, 40 minutes. Like, yes, it doesn't make those numbers quite, but it's annoying to see so much money put into a player that doesn't seem like he's really interested in football anymore. Yeah, his time at Arsenal made him an Arsenal boy, but his childhood club was West Ham. So I guess it's a fitting end to his career, which I assume is the end of his career in the next season or two with West Ham. But yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning him before we sort of get too far gone. On Lanzini, Lewis mentioned, unpopular opinion, but he didn't become the player that he could have been. How old is Lanzini now? He's 27. He's 27 years old. When we got Lanzini, I think he was 22. Might have been 21, 22. I remember him scoring on the edge of the box against Chelsea. We beat them. I think it was Stamford Bridge. Beat them 2-1. I think Carroll scored in that game as well. Lanzini scored a beautiful goal. I think it might have been Courtois at the time. I remember thinking, this kid, this guy's going to be great for us. And I guess he's another player that's faced injury so much over the last few years that's kept him from being the player that he could have been, which is upsetting to see, because I thought there was a time where he was really playing well. There was a photo of him next to Messi, and it was like an attacking midfielder from Argentina. Like, you never know what can happen with this sort of thing. And I had so much hope for him, and it just let down from it so drastically, to be honest. I don't dislike him, and then when he's fit, I like to see him in the team, because he's one of these players that has fast feet and can create and score as well. So I do rate him. I just think he's not the player that he could have been. Another player that's suffered poorly from injuries is Yarmolenko. When we brought him in at first, we were absolutely raving about him. It might have even been against Everton, I think it was Everton, maybe Southampton last season. He scored a beautiful goal on one of his first games, and everyone was really, really hyped about him. And then he got an 8-month injury. He got an 8-month injury and he was out for ages. But I know. Ash, you've got something to say about Yarmolenko, haven't you?
Yeah, it's just like they're paying 115,000 in wages for Yarmolenko at the moment, and he's only played 9 matches in the Premier League. Obviously, his injuries have played a massive factor in that, but I think paying 115k for a player that's only played 10 matches overall this season is ridiculous, and I think they need to get rid of that dead weight in midfield. Like, him and Jack Wilshere need to go, because that's 215k a week just on them 2 players. So I think that, yeah, the wage system for West Ham needs to change for that, and obviously get rid of those 2 would free up some revenue to buy a bigger and better player.
100%.
Yeah, and just quickly, while we're mentioning wingers, I believe Felipe Anderson's a talented player, but I think they need to bring someone to back him up, someone to push him, because he's so inconsistent. He's one of those players where you need a good option who could come on and play. Like, I could see Felipe Anderson as someone who splits like 20 games to 18 games with someone. And I've looked at 2 players from the Serie A. One's a bit less realistic, one's a bit more possible. One is Gosens, a German winger from Atalanta, who, played as a left back at the start and has now moved on to left midfield and has 9 goals, 8 assists. He's averaging about 2 tackles a game, 1 interception and a key pass a game, all from left mid. Since the restart, he's been one of Atalanta's better players, and I believe he's valued at about 18 million. For about 25 to 30 million, I'd say you take the punt for someone who maybe steps in, or someone who's be even cheaper. Chelsea fans might recognise this name, is Jeremy Boga. one of those players who were just stuck in Chelsea's academy for years and never really did anything, went to Sassuolo for about 3 million, and he's now had 11 goals, 2 assists, about averages a key pass, and then averages a monstrous 4 dribbles per game. That's someone who really just, that creativity could really help West Ham, And, if I want to keep going about creativity before we move on to proper forwards, and by that I mean strikers, Lanzini and Fornals I see a lot of similarities in them, but the similarities end where I see Fornals becoming what Lanzini was supposed to become. I think Fornals is incredible. He's shown in the games that he hasn't got end product yet. He can't shoot a ball properly sometimes. Like, it was the miss against Wolves, and then I just watched it and I was like, how do you miss that? You're right in front of the goal. You should be putting that away. It's similar to the Tom Davies shot against Liverpool. Like, how are you putting that away? It's simple. But I honestly see Fornals taking the role Noble plays in that weird sort of attacking midfield position, and him being given the keys to the attack by Moyes. And I feel like when he's fully trusted by Moyes to say, this is your team, you create for this team, he's going to excel and be incredible and be worth every single penny West Ham paid for it.
I think you said at the start there, you said that one of those signings was a little bit out of the question. I think Anderson to West Ham when he was first announced was out of the question. That's a Brazilian winger, which historically have big profiles. Just that alone, that played for Lazio, who were at the time a Europa League Italian team. Since then, they've pushed on more to sort of Champions League level. But that was like quite a big profile name coming to West Ham, and I think going forward with signings, you all know my stance on signings and spending big. I'm not keen on it, but I think from what we've seen from West Ham, them playing in the best league in the world, if you want to call it that, whatever, is enough to bring in these big-ish names. And I think that's a brilliant little way to go on to a player called Sebastian Haller. Record signing for West Ham. I know some of you guys have something to say about him. We were chatting earlier. I'm 100% up for giving him more time to prove himself. Injury this season has kept him out. That's why he hasn't been playing since the restart. He hasn't shown the same form as last season, but a lot of players don't find the move from the foreign league coming to the Premier League easy. It's a bigger, tougher league, sort of physical. He's a big guy, so I've all the faith that in the next season, if he's given time, if he is played in front of Antonio, which I'll get to in a minute, which I hope he is, I hope that he will be worth 40 million, to be honest. I think the 40 million price tag was scary from a West Ham point of view. We don't really bring in it's I'm going in circles here, but yeah, to spend that much money on one player and then for them to not live up to that price tag, it's scary, and the fan base will be the first ones to realise, hang on, this isn't the player that we signed all this cash for. And we've seen it with Joelinton. Wasn't he also signed for 40 million for Newcastle? And he's got a goal, 2 goals this season. He makes Haller look good. So, and finally, just to sort of round off my input on the attack and the team as a whole, Antonio, or should we say Antony Goat here on the...
Don't say that.
No, we do.
He's got...
Antony Goat is the highest scoring player in the Premier League since coming back from the restart with 7 of the 19th filming today. 7 goals in the league so far, which for what we need right now, in terms of the relegation battle, huge goals. Needed definitely. The win versus Norwich actually had me nervous. I thought we were going to be the team that let Norwich get a win in their final few games. Thankfully, we didn't, and he put them to bed with 4 goals, lethal that day, actually. But if I told you that I had faith in Antonio, I'd be telling a lie. I've slated him all season. I don't think he's a striker. And now he's come out and he's scored 7 goals in, is it 5 games?
I think so. Maybe you need to keep slating him.
Yeah, I think that's the key to success, at least for the rest of the season. 2 games remaining now. When we signed him from Forest, he was a right back, right wing back, right mid striker. He had all of the sort of places in the pitch where he could play. He's been converted more to a forward and a winger now, which I think with his pace and his strength, he belongs out on the wing. But he's proved me wrong, so I'm completely open to having my mind turned. To be honest, what do you guys make of the Haller Antonio sort of debate that I guess is now being put forward? Lewis, do you want to say on that?
Yeah, I think with Haller, they've got a really good striker in Haller who scored, I think, 15 goals and got 9 assists last season in the Bundesliga. And he was part of the front three with Luka Jovic and Ante Rebic of Real Madrid and AC Milan, respectively. And I think with West Ham, the problem is they don't seem to play to his strength, which is weird because I feel like Haller would be quite useful for Moyes' tactics and the way he sets up his team. Obviously, Mikel Antonio, I think, obviously he's been the best striker since the restart, but he's got 9 goals in all competitions this season. So when you take into account the 5 or 7 or however many he scored, that's not good at all. And Haller scored 7. So West Ham either need to adapt their tactics to Haller, or I feel like they need to get rid of him and bring in a striker that will actually suit their system. So for me, it's either you adapt to Haller or you just get rid of him and get someone to adapt to you. I think that's pretty much the situation with West Ham. I think up front they're lacking. But yeah, I just think they've got a world-class striker. If they just use him right, I think he could be a top player as well. Obviously, he showed his quality at Frankfurt, and I think West Ham, for the money they spent, they need to make the most of it. So I think they either use him or use him to they use their tactics around him, or they get rid of him and bring someone else in.
I think West Ham have to keep Sebastian Haller just for his pure ability. But weird thing about Sebastian Haller that it seems like a lot of West Ham fans don't understand is his best trait wasn't his goal scoring ability for the Bundesliga. It was his ability to create for Rebic and for Jovic and to bring everyone else into the play. You know, I feel like if you play Sebastian Haller to his strengths, it means Moyes has to move away from this 4-4-1-1, or he has to do what he did at Everton, and that's a bit of a risky move where we played, we played Fellaini as basically an attacking midfielder / a striker. So why not play Antonio in that attacking midfield role? Someone who can, Haller can hold the ball up, can outstrength the man, and then he can bring people like Antonio, Felipe Anderson, and Jared Bowen into the play instead of Moyes going, "You're my big French Andy Carroll," because that's not what he is. He has creativity to his game, and if you allow him to bring other players in, West Ham are going to succeed so much more. And I can guarantee it, if they give Haller the role he wants to bring other people in and to even score his own opportunities, I am saying you get a minimum of 15 to 18 goal contributions next year. Even in this current West Ham team, he just needs to fit the system, and then Moyes has a real striker on his hands.
If Moyes is given the time to build the team he wants and gets the faith and the confidence from the players back, I reckon it's not out of the question. I saw a number not too long ago that honestly it's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen football related for any club, and the fact that it's my club is disgusting. But it was something like since the year 2000, West Ham have had they fielded in their starting 11 something like 109 strikers, different strikers, and they as a collective have scored, I think it's just under 30 goals in that time. This is in the league. Sorry, not all competitions, but if that is true, that is gross. I don't want that in my club. I don't want my club to be that. It's just not. I could name a handful of strikers right now that we've had that did a job when the team played well. Jeffrey Sacco and Valencia. Even Andy Carroll on his day did what he was supposed to do. Big guy, I don't see Ronaldo scoring hat-tricks against Arsenal. Andy Carroll did. So knock him and slate him all you want, but Ronaldo didn't do that. So before I go too off on one with my mad rants, I'll let Ashley end this part, because I know you haven't had your say on the forwards yet. I'd like to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah, no, I agree with Gaff and Lewis. I think you keep Sebastian Haller just because he's a very good player. Just needs to find his form, and then I think he will be a huge player for West Ham. As Mikel Antonio goes, how old is he now? You say earlier.
I will have a look. 28. He's 30 years old.
Yeah,
Antonio,
30 years old. So he won't be. He'll start declining soon. It's going to happen. I think maybe bring in another striker who can replace him. I've got Ollie Watkins written down here, and if Brentford stay down, which it looks like they're going to, Ollie Watkins he'll want to leave, and I think West Ham would be a good team for him to go to actually prove himself in the Premier League. I think that Sebastian Haller just needs more. He needs to develop a bit more, and then he can be a huge player for West Ham. West Ham have signed 38 strikers since 2010, and they've only scored 203 goals in 957 games, which is Jesus Christ. That's
horribly off, but you get the gist of 200 goals in 900 appearances.
Yeah, 203 goals in 957 games.
As of the end of last season.
So my numbers were disgustingly off, but the point is, it's just not good enough. So we need to find faith in one striker, and if Haller is a striker to stop this trend of buying and selling a big name striker in the same season or after a season or two, and so be it. I'd happily put my faith in that to happen, because that is silly. That's a frightening number. That is frightening.
I think everything.
You what?
Yeah.
I think we've covered everything there then.
Yeah. Has anyone else got one more thing to say before we end up?
No.
I think quickly. I think the main problem West Ham faced this season, at least, is conceding goals. I think we've pretty much covered it well. I think going forward, obviously there is always room for improvement. There is at both ends of the pitch, but as we've seen, as we've said, they've got players that can create, and we've seen that Haller can finish. Even this season, he hasn't been great, but he has faced injury. There are players that can score goals. It's just keeping them out, and I think we've addressed every part of the pitch where there is strength, where there's weakness, what needs to happen, what needs to stay the same. So yeah, spot on for that job there, guys. That's my piece on it.
Right, so it looks like we're done here, and before we forget to mention one more thing, the goal was to make West Ham mid-table again. Like that, I'd say between 9th and 12th sort of range. Like, kind of like you expect them to be, maybe even higher up the table. But I'd like to thank everyone for watching this Rebuild episode. If you could, please like and subscribe, follow all our socials, and that'd be lovely if you did that. And thank you all for watching. Goodbye, everybody.
Right.
Thank you.
Nice one.